As you mentioned, we are really honored to have Honorable François-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry of Canada, here with us today. So I would like to now invite Mr. Félix Corriveau, Public Affairs and Business Development Consultant, to moderate the session with the Minister, and we'll resume the rest of the program a little bit later.
Come siamo stamattina?
Vous voulez vous asseoir ici?
It's not too bad to start the morning with champagne, no? Non è spumante, ma comunque, cioè, sai, non è male. Il fallait mettre un peu d'énergie, vous ne trouvez pas, non?
Je comptais sur vous.
Ben oui, ben là, c'est pour ça qu'on fait ça. Permettez-moi, avant que vous commenciez, c'est vous qui posez les questions?
C'est moi.
Ah,
Voulez-vous qu'on fasse l'inverse?
Non, mais je voulais saluer d'abord l'ambassadrice Goldberg. Je ne sais pas si Elissa est encore avec nous, mais merci, Madame l'ambassadrice, de votre travail. Moi, j'ai connu Elissa. On a envoyé, Monsieur l'ambassadeur Ferrari, une de nos meilleures dans le service public extérieur. I've known her for many, many years, and we only send our very best to our friend in Italy. And to Ambassador Ferrari, thank you. Since I'm having dinner at your place on Thursday, I'll be nice to you because you're cooking the dinner. But it's great to have you, and thank you for your service to Italy. Thank you for your service in Canada. I think you deserve a big round of applause for all the things you've done.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, why not? You know, this was just like a...
We have very limited time.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
I know.
Donc, hello, buongiorno, bonjour. My name is Félix Corriveau. I work for the Italian Chamber in Canada in public affairs and business development, and it is my real pleasure to be with you today and to interview you, Mr. Champagne. I think you will agree with me that in this room we have people from different continents, people from different sectors, people from the business world, companies of various sizes, big, small, medium companies. And despite our differences, I think we can all agree on one thing, is that AI will be the most important advancement in terms of technology for several decades in the coming years. And it will transform, it already transforms our lives. And to open this forum, we are extremely fortunate to have one of Canada's best positioned people to discuss the transformation that comes with AI by welcoming Canada's Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, François-Philippe Champagne. So officially, welcome to this forum.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all of you, and thank you to the Italian Chamber. I was saying to the President this morning as I was walking in, thank you for choosing also the theme of AI. I think that AI is I've said that at other conferences, so apologies to those who have seen me before. But I think it's the holy grail of productivity. I think we've been searching to improve our productivity in this country. But I would say it's, you know, Ambassador Ferrari, I think it's fair to say, I was just at the G7, and it's interesting, my colleagues say, we have problems, you have issues. So it's very different when you take it from in the world of today, you know, how much Canada is seen, particularly I would say on the international stage when it comes to AI. And I think the theme of AI is key, like I said, productivity, prosperity, and certainly economic growth. And responsible AI is really what Canada is known for. You know, we hosted, some of you would know, and because some of you were in the room, we had the Commissioner Vestager, the EU Commissioner, which just came a few weeks ago. And she was actually praising the work of Canada in the international arena, what we've done with the global partnership on AI, and the fact that the Italian Chamber decided to focus on what I think is going to be probably one of the most consequential technology that we will see in our lifetime. I mean, some of us are old enough to remember the internet. You know, the internet was kind of a game changer in our lifetime, you know. And then you see now electric vehicle. You say, okay, that's another big industry which is seeing a huge transformation. But just to finish on that, I was with Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. And some of you would know he's been fairly successful in computing. Not too bad on market cap either, because the day I met him, his market cap was bigger than the GDP of Canada. and now his market cap is higher than the GDP of Canada. So thanks that I met him when he was still humble. But I was with him, and he was in Toronto with us for like 2-3 hours. Well, he spent a day. I was with him for an hour. And I said to him, I said, Jensen, help me understand. I said, the only big transformation I've seen in my lifetime, and probably like most of you, would be the internet. I mean, the biggest one. So I said, how would you compare, because our mind is not really wired to think exponentially. So I said, how would you compare AI to the internet? Because that's the only thing I can master in my own brain. What was the impact? And he paused for about 15 to 30 seconds, which, trust me, is a long time when you're only 2 people in the room. and he looked at me and he said, it's at least going to be 100 times more transformational. And that evening I came back home and I talked to my wife and said, assuming this is someone who doesn't really know what he's talking about, so let's discount by 50% what he said. So that would be 50 times. And assuming he's really wrong, assuming this is something who knows nothing about GPUs, this is someone who has no credibility in the field, assuming he's wrong by 95%, that would still be 5 times more powerful to transform life than the internet. And since that time and everything that you've seen, I mean, ChatGPT and the new versions that are coming, it's just telling me that the team you have selected, all that to say, to praise you, by the way, was a long answer just to praise you, to say that you chose, I think, the theme that is the most consequential. It was centered at the G7 meeting we had in Rome, and thank you for the understanding of my Italian friends, because of Parliament votes, I could not attend, but the Italians said, don't worry, we know what it is. Having a Parliament issue, so they understood that I could only join virtually. But at the same time, it was the same discussion we had, for example, when Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor to the President, came to visit us. So this is really top of mind to all the world leaders and decision makers. And so therefore, I think that the fact we're looking at the bridge we can build between Canada and Italy is very timely.
Mm-hmm. This forum is happening in a very, I would say, unique context. And do not worry, I'm not going to question you on the political Canadian context.
Oh, you can? I'm sure.
No, I think you have other things to do.
It's going to make for interesting headlines.
So Canada and Italy just joined, just signed this roadmap for an enhanced collaboration between the 2 countries. So what I would like to know from you, could you elaborate on the importance of this enhanced collaboration, focusing on AI innovation?
Well, I think it's a game changer, and I want to say thank you to Ambassador Ferrari, because he was with Ambassador Goldberg. They were really the architect of that. You know, there was a moment where we wanted to bring our relationship further, and there's certainly a number of things which are interesting. I mean, there's an aspect around it which is critical minerals, and I think our Italian friends have understood that in a world where I think, let me go back, and I see kind of the world in 4 dimensions, like people see that in 3D and I see that in 4D. The first one is decarbonization. The second one is digitalization. The third one is demography, and the fourth one is disruption. So if you see the world in a frame like that, where stability, predictability, and the rule of law is in a high demand and short supply in the world today, you really want a strategic partner. And that was really the essence of our relationship, where we wanted to bring that to the strategic level. So the first thing about critical minerals, that is essential, because critical minerals, I mean, Canada is the only Western country, you could say, which has been bestowed with all the critical minerals to do batteries, but also to do semiconductors. And if you agree that semiconductor is the DNA of progress, you understand that access to critical minerals, or the countries which have access to critical minerals, are going to play a key role in the 21st century. There's no doubt about that. Sometimes I say critical minerals will be in the 21st century what oil was in the 20th century, because if you have the critical minerals, or if you don't have access to it, it's going to have an impact on your growth and certainly a number of industry. So we focused on critical mineral. The other aspect of that was on AI. And I would say the team of responsible AI, to make sure that we would have an AI which reflect our values, an AI for the people, serving humanity. And I often say that the jury is out. I mean, if you and I were to go out of this room this morning and ask people in the street, I think it'd be 50-50. People see what AI will do to them as opposed to what AI will do for them. And so I think, in my view, I say if we want to move from fear to opportunity, we need to build trust. And you build trust with regulation and framework. And I think that's something that our Italian friends understood as well and want to be with us in that journey. Because I think if we want to reach the full potential, and Julien Bilot is with us, and I think is a speaker, this issue of trust and responsible AI is key, because you can have two reactions when you have new technologies, whether you fear or whether you embrace it and tailor it in a way that would serve humanity. And the other aspect, and I was just talking to the ambassador, we have made significant also, I would say, steps in our relationship with the space agency, the Italian space agency. So, if you're looking at things that will matter in the 21st century, for growth, for prosperity, for productivity, and if you look at the world with these 4D, clearly on the decarbonization agenda, we're at the same place. On digitalization, I think we both understand that AI quantum, and if you want to add cyber to that, is going to be key. Demography, well, demography is destiny, and that's been true for centuries. So I think our Italian friends feel the same in terms of how do you master growth in a declining, with an aging population in many places. And therefore, also in the world of disruptions, where you wake up every morning and there's different type of disruptions. For those who live in Europe, you still have war on the continent, challenges in the Taiwan Strait, obviously the war in the Middle East. So there's a lot of things, plus the high cost of energy, inflation. So we live in a world where I think you need, when you have friends and partners, you need to elevate that to a strategic relationship. And I think that's what the roadmap is all about. And that's why I'm grateful to Ambassador Ferrari and Ambassador Goldberg to have had the vision to bring that with our two leaders, with Prime Minister Meloni, which we hosted not too long ago.
You talked about opportunities. I'd like to hear you on economic opportunities for, pardon me, in the context of that roadmap. What can be the opportunities for Italian companies who want to internationalize in Canada and vice versa, and how organizations like the Chamber here can support that creation of opportunity?
Well, Canada should be the natural beachhead for our Italian friends. If you have an Italian business, Canada is kind of the natural places. When I was foreign minister, people were joking, and, well, you can quote me, but not immediately, I guess, on that. It's going to make news. But, often people are saying Canada is the most European country outside of Europe, and some would even say probably somehow more European than some others. So the value proposition we have, the view we have of the world and our contribution facilitate that kind of relationship. So I'll say two things. If you look at AI, you don't need to take it from me, but if you Jeff Hinton, like you mentioned before, Nobel Peace Prize, if you talk to people who have been at the forefront, there's key sectors. Certainly in health, AI will have a tremendous opportunity, and all the innovation around that. I was at a summit recently, Bilderberg, where in health they were saying we're living in the renaissance of health, because with permanent diagnostic, basically the intelligent watches you can wear or devices, which give you constant monitoring of some of your health condition, and the advancement of personalized medicine, they were saying the next 10 years are just going to be breakthrough technology in terms of health. So health, I think, and AI certainly has a big potential. If you listen to Bill Gates of Microsoft, the things that you can do on the education side is phenomenal. And I think the place where AI will have the biggest impact is on science and research and innovation, because you can do things that you could probably not do before. And certainly for me, this is really where the focus could be between our two nations. We have a strong biomanufacturing sector in Canada. We have a strong automotive sector in Canada. We have a strong aerospace sector like we have in Italy. We have a strong agricultural sector. And I was just at the Mucci farm recently in Ontario. And for those who have never seen how they grow from strawberries to cucumbers to tomato, but on industrial scale, it's phenomenal. And it's two Italian families, the ambassador who started that. It's phenomenal with people. They came with $20 and now have a business probably of $1 billion. I say, thanks God they didn't come with 25. God knows what we would have seen now, you know. But it's amazing because the pioneer in many fields have been the Italians in our community, in our business. And why Canada? Well, I mean, for me, it's oftentimes 5 things. The first thing is around talent. Canada is still a magnet for talent. And you know, I was at the G7, and it's interesting that in Canada, we still talk about immigration as a net positive. And we've done some adjustment because you need to have the right balance. But you know, it's pretty unique today that you hear that. I mean, some of you would agree with me. I've been in this 10 years and been attending a number of summits. And people really envy Canada of this magnet for talent. The second thing why Canada is the strength of the ecosystem. You know, I often say Canada is a smaller version of the United States industrially because, you know, you go from aerospace, like here in Montreal, where you have the 3 major aircraft manufacturers from Boeing to Airbus to Bombardier. You have a mining industry. You have a biomanufacturing industry. We attracted Moderna recently on our shore. You have a huge AI industry, a knowledge industry. We just built the first quantum computer right here in Quebec, entirely made here. We have, now we've entered in the auto industry, the battery industry. So we have very strong ecosystem if you want to get into in the industrial base in North America. The third thing is critical minerals. And you would say, well, Minister, there are critical minerals in other parts of the world. But if you talk to the CEO of the big car manufacturer, they'd say proximity. Proximity is everything. Proximity to resources, market, and assembly line. And I was with one CEO, he said, you know what I like about you? And I was wondering, you know, when your name is like Champagne, I said, what are you going to say? And he said, you know what, if things go bad, I can truck stuff across. And if they go really bad, I'll take my pickup truck and pick it up myself. And he said, that's why we love you guys. It's you know, we can touch it. And in the world after COVID, where very long supply chain have been regionalized, that's a net advantage to Canada. When you sit next to the largest market or consumer market, or one of the largest, my European friends always remember me that they are the largest consumer market with 500 million, but the American market or North American market is still significant. The fourth thing is around renewable energy. Everyone wants to decarbonize. It's not a surprise that everyone wants to come to Canada, and particularly in Quebec, because we're blessed. We have 100% of renewable energy. So anyone, if you go back to the 4D, the first one is decarbonization. So if you want to decarbonize, that's a natural place to come. Because if you think of your supply chain for the next 20, 30, 50 years, you need to decarbonize. And the last thing would be access to market. I never mentioned Canada as a country of 40 million people, but I always said Canada is the country that gives you preferential market access to 1.5 billion consumers. And because Canada is the only G7 country to date which has a free trade agreement with all the other G7 nations. And this was foresight. I don't know if it's foresight or luck, but regardless, I think that the golden age of trade agreement is probably behind us. But the fact that Canada could capture that opportunity to be the only country in the G7 which is connected as much as in Europe with Asia, with Japan, Vietnam, Singapore, the countries of high growth in demography, probably not including some of them have higher growth like Vietnam, obviously, than Japan, but also access to the North American market, I think gives a value proposition. If you're looking at how do I enter the North American market, I think, and I've spent 20 years of my life in business in Europe, I think the Canadian market is seen as a very stable, predictable, and friendly market to enter one of the largest economic zones in the world.
At the beginning of your answer, you mentioned the medical field. And that brings me back to the theme of this event, which is fostering our well-being with AI. And I'd like to hear you from your perspective as a minister. How can the development of AI can support our well-being, well-being of individuals, well-being of companies, well-being of communities?
Well, and I'll just go back also. I'll join the two questions, the ones you had before as well. And I was pleased to hear Ambassador Goldberg mention that we had 160 companies, SMEs, because, by the way, the backbone of our economy in Canada is 98% is SMEs. So that is really those that we need to cater for. You know, if you talk about AI, I think The biggest challenge we have, and we talked about that with Minister Orso when we had the G7, is adoption. If there was one thing that you should focus on, I don't want to give you homework because I hope you're going to invite me again. But certainly I would say adoption, adoption, adoption. It's all nice to talk about AI, but unless and until our SMEs on both sides of the Atlantic would adopt it, we're not capturing the full potential of it. It can do great things, but we still need to adopt. And I think there's still a feeling that this is for the big companies. You know, you would think of an Airbus, or you would think Alenia Spazio, you would think of, you know, the big groups. You would say for them it's normal. But there's also, and Julien probably can talk about that, there's also phenomenal application in small and medium-sized businesses, from grocery to logistics to really improving the performance of companies. And therefore, I think that should be a focus. And I think where you can make a difference is connecting the dots. There's a lot of AI startup or firms that want to scale, but they need probably a kind of a matchmaking exercise, you know, because people may not know, but I think we should showcase the type of AI and what it can do to different sector of the economy. On the health side, I mean, for me, the easiest one is, you know, even if your doctor is as old as mine, which is close to 75.
Oh, that's fine.
No, I love him. You know, I mean, listen, when you have a family doctor, you
You
like
should consider yourself lucky.
No, I still love him. But you know, if you're going for a scan of a tumor, even the most experienced doctor would have seen what? A few thousand of these images, you know, a radiologist or anyone. The augmentation with AI, we can have seen like 1 billion of them to try to help diagnostics is one of the most easy one to capture, and everything in between that you can assume how you provide health services and augment. It's never about replacing the human in the equation. It's about augmenting, because basically what AI does to you is basically bring the knowledge of the world at your fingertip, and therefore you augment your capacity to offer the best possible diagnostics, or to make sure you capture the knowledge of what it could be, and then bring the proper care to the patient. And I think that's a huge game changer, certainly. But there's many other fields, I think, in logistics, and I think our Italian friends have always been very good at that in the ag sector. Believe it or not, I was at a food processing plant, and they said, "Minister, we use AI." That was in New Brunswick, and I said, "Really?" Honestly, I said, "What?" They were a seafood packaging kind of enterprise, fairly big, and they said, "Oh yeah." Believe it or not, I said, "But where do you put AI?" I mean, I was trying to figure out well, he said, "You're so old school." He said, "Let me introduce you to the AI person." I said, "I want to see him. I don't believe you, by the way." So we walk in his office. I see a guy. I said, "You're the AI guy." He said, "Yeah, what I've done." I said, "Apparently you do AI." He said, "Yeah. Every night we send the data and we get back a report." I said, "I don't believe you. Give me a report of 2 weeks ago." He said, "Fine. Which date?" Pick a date. And he said, "Do you want the long version or the summary?" I said, "I want the long version." He said, "Do you want 4 lines per bullet points or 5 lines?" I said, "I'll take the 5 lines. Within 30 seconds, you print out the report. And I was flabbergasted, having been in the automation industry. And it says like, "Well, go to pump number 12 and just twist it a bit and you're going to get that. Try this and that." And they had a report of 10 things where every night the AI system look at the production they had the day before and try to optimize the process and learn from one day to the other. And I said, if you can have AI to optimize seafood packaging and I don't want to say manufacturing, but the process of that, I said, wow, if that is what we can do today, I mean, the opportunities are endless. And therefore, I think if you can help us with adoption, if you can help us to make sure that, you know, we work together with Italian friends to have this very possible view of how we bring AI in a very positive way. For me, it's all about possibilities and opportunities. So we need to seize the moment. We need to be ambitious, as our Italian friends and Canadians have always been. And I trust on you. It's a big mandate, but to bring our relationship to its full potential. And I think it starts here this morning with the people in the room.
Well, I think those are very wise words to conclude this conversation. Thank you very much. It was enlightening.
Merci
A
tout
round
le
of
monde.
applause for Minister Champagne.
Merci, merci. Enjoy the day. Grazie mille, hein? Grazie mille.
Thank you very much.